Merry Christmas from today's sponsors, Laros Media Incorporated. Please stay tuned for a special message later in the program. Hello and welcome to the Stinking Albatross Podcast. My name is Alissa and I am here for the final time this year with my co-host and partner in crime, Scott Hayward. How's it going, Scott?
Oh, it's going great, Alyssa. As we can see, we are here in our homes. We're always in our homes, but with our Christmas decorations, because we're recording this a few days before Christmas. You
Yeah.
look like Mrs. Claus herself with all the red. Look at that and the
Look
bow.
at the
Oh, closer, closer. Very good. I don't have Christmas earrings, but I do
no,
have a
but
Christmas shirt
yes.
right here. Yeah, this was a gift from you. This is Kevin from The Office, and it's a Christmas shirt, and he is bringing chili into the office, and I don't want to ruin uh, the surprise, so to speak, for anyone who hasn't seen The Office, which is probably no one at this point, but something very comical happens with the chili at the end, and as Alyssa knows, and avid listeners to the podcast, I'm a big chili connoisseur, and I like to make my own chili. Never spilt it, mind. Oh, I guess we're in the surprise there. Never spilt it, mind you, like Kevin. Uh, I'm sure the day will come.
Spoiler.
Yeah,
20-year spoiler. Has it been? Well, yeah, it's almost 20 years, I think.
20 years. This past 20 years this year, I think, is when it first premiered, the first season of The American Office.
Yeah, you know that Mariah Carey song, All I Want for Christmas is You. Do you know how
Yeah,
old that song is?
I think it's more than 20,
Next year it'll be 30 years old.
just like us, right?
Yes, exactly. I thought like that was just wild to me. I couldn't believe it. I hate
Yeah,
that song. My kids
it's
love it.
the most hated Christmas album of all time.
But it's continuous. It's been number one for the past 11 years.
Yeah,
So it's
although
like always number one.
I mean, yeah, Taylor Swift, Person of the Year or whatever, I guess, has had I don't know how many number ones this year. Which not that like Taylor Swift's music is necessarily like terrible in terms of like music itself. I don't know about like lyricism, but yeah, I think it just goes to show a dearth of what's out there. But despite all that, do you still know what the number one selling single to this day all time is?
No idea.
Bing Crosby, White Christmas.
Yeah, Bing Crosby's Christmas music is always like the number one thing that I put on here. My kids love Jingle Bells with the Andrews Sisters. It's the
Yes.
best.
Do you know
Um,
what my daughter calls Bing Crosby when we put him on?
what?
Santa.
Yeah, that's funny. It's cute.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I was checking the last time we had a podcast and it said a month ago, but I couldn't find a date. So we haven't put out a podcast in a month because we have been Trey busy. So you are now in a different province,
I am. Yeah.
thankfully. I don't
Home.
know.
Yep. Yep. Back home here in Brandon. Here for work purposes because we have the Manitoba PC leadership race. We have a provincial election in Saskatchewan, as well as here to be close to family as well. Southern Ontario is not necessarily the least expensive place to live. And so my wife and I, we were very comfortable renting there. But, as the family gets larger and you need to move on from renting to buying down in Southern Ontario, that's a pretty tall order. Whereas here out in Western Manitoba, it's a little more reasonable. So, yeah, here back to be the coordinator for right now for prairies in northwestern Ontario. I will fulfill that role, but also here to not just purchase property eventually, but also to be close to family, which is big and has been absolutely wonderful. They were over the other day um, making gingerbread cookies. Oh no, my wife ate my dad's. He won the gingerbread cookie contest. Um,
I can
mine
only
didn't make
imagine.
mine didn't make the top five despite only four being made, but maybe next year.
I'm literally okay. My 3-year-old daughter stayed home from the babysitters today because she is very sick,
Right.
and the only stock I have put all the stocking, like all the stuff in the stocking, so that it's in the basement with all the other presents. So only my stocking is hanging at the fireplace, and I see Abigail. She's opening my Abigail. Come here. She took presents out of my stocking and is now proceeding to open them. Look at her hair. She looks absolutely crazy.
It's pretty par for the course. Hi, Abby. How's it going, Abby? Oh, look at that.
You can't open those presents. Those are my stocking presents. Hey, go see Daddy. And
She
put my
seems
present back.
she seems convinced.
She's too high on cough syrup right now.
So
Count.
are you wrapping your own stocking stuffers? Is that
No, I'm saying that I did all the stockings other than my own, so they're in the basement where I've been.
oh, gotcha.
So then Aaron or Santa has been putting them in my stocking as he goes, but it's the only one hanging here right now. But like she got a present from her babysitter today, and she's gotten different presents here and there. So I think she's sort of like getting ready for the present opening time. So when she sees a present, she just wants to open it right now because she thinks they're all for her.
My wife, she did an advent calendar, but instead of having like the regular chocolate advent calendar, which I'm sad didn't make it into this house here, we have a bunch of advent Christmas books, and she wrapped each of them, and there's
Yeah,
24 of
I
them.
saw that.
Yeah,
That's
so
so cool.
yeah, although my daughter had a little bit of trouble kind of restraining herself from opening
Yeah.
more than one per day. They're
Yeah,
all open now,
that's
but I mean that's pretty close to the end.
yeah. Yeah, so a month ago you were in Southwestern
Mm.
Ontario
Yeah,
and you moved to Brandon, which took a lot of time and effort and money, and it's like a lot of work to move province to province. It is not easy.
yeah, no,
Um,
never again.
and when I did it, I was single, so I literally sold everything in my ghetto apartment in downtown Toronto, which no big deal, and like all my most prized possessions fit in my like little Honda car, and I just drove out here. So it wasn't a big deal. And then I just bought furniture when I was out here. But with a family, you have all your actual stuff that you bought after your wedding and your furniture, and then stuff happens to it,
Yeah, we had
right?
to hire movers, and then of course, not everything comes in one piece, and some stuff is
Yeah.
broken, and you have to make the claim, and that's why you have the insurance. And
Hmm.
of course, let's see, we left on my sister came, she flew to Ontario about a week before we left. My wife, my sister, and the kids, they left the day before. And then I was there one more day, and the movers came, help the movers direct things and all that type of stuff. So that was November 6th. I left Ontario. Our stuff didn't arrive in Brandon until November 19th, which is, pretty par for the course. And
Hmm.
by the time everything's moved in and we've cleaned the place and we're putting things away, it basically is December.
Yeah.
By the time everything's unpacked and, we figured out what dish works and what cupboard and all that type of stuff and the pantry, and we still haven't quite settled in. And then we have to go buy Christmas gifts and then wrap them, and then
Hmm.
at the same time, we had this very, very successful petition drive that we did in a variety of parishes and congregations across Canada, and we had well over 5,000 people sign a petition, all brand new people, most like well over 98% brand new people in our database. And so I'm trying to process them into our database manually because people are manually signing a petition.
Yeah.
Um, and so that took quite a bit of work as well. So anyway, we're trying to do that in anticipation of all these nominations coming up for the next federal election and a couple of provincial ones as well.
Yeah, so that's been one of the reasons why we haven't done a podcast for a while. And then also, the last time we did a podcast, I didn't tell anyone or hadn't announced yet that I was pregnant again with baby number three. So I'm like a full out whale right now, and I'm entering my third trimester on Christmas Day because I'm due exactly 3 months from Christmas. So we will see how that goes. We know it's a baby boy, which is cute. I do want a
Have you
baby
guys
girl
settled
again,
on
though.
the name? You don't have to
No.
say it, but
We never know the names. And last time, oh my goodness, last baby it was a boy, and we weren't sure if we wanted to do A names because everybody in our family that thus far had A names.
right.
So he really wanted Alexander,
Such a solid name.
Yeah, really, it's solid. Do you want to know why he wanted the name Alexander? Because of that like 80s show Alexander P. Keaton, like the Michael J. Fox character, which
Oh yeah, yeah, the little Republican or whatever.
he loved that, that character. I'm like, I'm not naming my kid after a TV character from
Not the emperor that
yeah,
conquered the known world at the
no.
time.
I also thought it was a little basic. Sorry for all the Alexanders out there, but he hated the names that I liked. So I liked Atticus, and he's like, "What kind of a name is that?" I'm like, "You haven't read To Kill a Mockingbird," and he said he read it in high school or whatever. But I just love that book. It's one of my favorite books
Gregory
of all
Peck,
time.
right? In the
Of
film.
course, yes.
Yeah.
And then I also liked Asher or Ash. He didn't like it because it was like it would sound Asher Runner, so two ER. Anyway,
Right.
we just couldn't decide. So we both liked,
Alexander Renner.
yeah, exactly. I think probably I
You
used
should
that.
call me in when you guys are fighting.
I think we didn't decide on Noah until the hospital, really. But then we realized, you know what, if we have, more and more children, then we have to keep continuously doing A names, and it's hard. So we just broke the trend with Noah, and so the next baby cannot be an A name. That's all we know.
Yeah, and Noah be the outlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was really funny. I usually signed Christmas cards and different cards with AAA because it was Abigail, Aaron, and Alyssa. And then we had Noah, and then my sister Lucy was living with us. And so I just decided one time to sign the card using the first letter of each person's name, his
It's gonna
name.
be good. Like
And
it's gonna spell
it's
something good.
it's spelled AANAL. That's how I accidentally signed a card that way, and I didn't even notice. And I put it in the in the envelope, and it was like Christmas Day, and I think it was to Aaron's mom, my husband's mom, and she
Love.
just started laughing. So yeah, hopefully it won't be an L name either, so I don't make that mistake. But yeah, so that is another big life event. So lots of right now life events happening. But we really wanted to jump on and do a final year end podcast. And we're not really going to talk about anything specific. There have been some political events that have happened that we'll mention, but we're just kind of, you know, just talking, catching up with our audience, that those two people. Thank you for listening. I remember Conan always doing that joke, so I always. um, and also while Scott was moving, I was also doing a lot of traveling all over the country, and my I at one point I went to the London area, and I stayed with my cousin, and he was telling me about all the like funny mess ups that I say and don't notice, and it was comical. So if I have sounded weird or will sound weird or not put sentences together properly, I'm just going to blame it completely on pregnancy brain at this point.
How convenient.
You should too.
I'll be working on that this
Yeah.
Christmas.
Yeah, exactly. Um, yeah, so yeah, I mean, so we did the petition drive, and that was really good. We added over 5,000 people to our database, which is going to be really good come nomination time. And nominations are coming fast and furious. In January, they will be many will be closing, specifically in British Columbia. I'm not sure where else in other places, but I know that's where they're going to start. And last election, we had well, two elections ago, before COVID, we had 10 swing ridings in that province, and we uh, and then we helped 10 different pro-life candidates. One of the candidates, about a few weeks before the election, decided, I'm getting too much heat on this abortion issue. I don't want to talk about it anymore, so I don't want your help. So I said, fine, whatever. Took all the volunteers from his campaign, put them to the other campaigns in the surrounding area. Election day comes, and we win all 9 of the swing ridings except for that one guy who said he didn't want our help anymore. So,
He lost by 150, and then the candidate next door that we helped, she won by 150 because
yeah,
we moved the volunteers, the door knocking volunteers that last week from his campaign to her campaign.
it was an incredibly low amount of people, and so winning those nominations is the first step to winning those swing ridings, that's for sure. And so that'll be very important. And yeah, we'll be focusing on that. Has there been a date announced for the Manitoba leadership race, the
No,
PC?
they still have some rules that they're trying to figure out. They're gonna decide because the way the party constitution is written is that it's up to the provincial council, which is huge. It's like the one in New Brunswick, and I'm sure we'll get to New Brunswick soon.
Hmm.
Um, the provincial council, which is basically their version of the Conservative Party of Canada's national council. So of course, the federal party is much smaller, and the provincial party Manitoba is much larger. They're the ones that decide what the leadership rules are going to be. Is it going to be an electronic ballot or is it going to be a paper ballot? Personally, as an auditor, I much prefer physical ballots. One
Hmm.
problem that they had last time is that a higher than normal amount of the ballots did not get to party members in time.
Yeah.
So with Canada Post, especially for a national party like the Conservative Party of Canada or the Liberal Party of Canada, on a leadership race, is to be expected about 1.5 to maybe 3% of your members are not going to be receiving their ballots because they get lost in the mail and they don't apply to the party to get a ballot sped mail or what is not sped mail, fast mail, whatever the term is, express post. There we go, express post to the member.
Hmm.
But in Manitoba, in the last leadership race for the Progressive Conservative Party of Manitoba 2 years ago, that was over 5% of party members did not receive their ballot. And Heather Stephenson beat Shelley Glover by a couple hundred votes out of tens of thousands cast across the province. So they're trying to decide, are we going to do electronic ballots or are we going to do paper ballots, pros and cons? I come down still on the paper ballot side.
Hmm.
They need to decide, is it going to be one member, one vote right across the province, or for the 57 different ridings across provincial ridings across Manitoba, is it going to be like the federal parties where each riding gets 100 points and you need to get 50% plus one of the points to win with a ranked ballot system? So we're just kind of waiting on those details. But yeah, it'll be a race. I already got phone calls about it. I do have to return those phone calls hopefully before the end of this year because people are very interested. And so, yeah,
Yeah,
it's gonna be
who's rumored to run or who has said that they have an intention of running?
it's interesting because there hasn't been a ton of people within the existing caucus right now. There are rumored to run. Obi Khan is one of them. He's a former, I believe, offensive lineman for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, the first Muslim member of the Legislative Assembly in Manitoba to be elected. He's in southern Winnipeg suburban riding. He's rumored to run. Kevin Klein, who lost his seat, is another one. Served as an MLA for a very short amount of time. And then Candice Bergen, who everyone will probably remember being the interim leader of the Conservative Party of Canada after Aaron O'Toole was basically fired by the caucus and before Pierre Poilievre was elected. And I think most people thought she did a pretty decent job
Yeah,
as
like
an
I can
leader.
I can't imagine anyone beating her if she entered the race.
Yeah, so and she's kind of rumored to be there. And I think most people in this province would be happy with her on the conservative side, and probably most
Hmm.
people overall. So, and she has 100% pro-life voting record in the House of Commons, both on abortion and assisted suicide. So, and
Hmm.
Manitoba is one of the very few provinces in Canada where we have conscientious protection rights in law, in statute for
Hmm.
healthcare professionals. And the NDP have not touched that yet, and they haven't said that they would. So that
Hmm.
that that will be interesting. Lob Canoe has been interesting so far. He
I know
hasn't been.
everyone here is like complaining because he took away the gas tax in
Yeah,
Manitoba, and here um, Danielle Smith is letting it expire and just be re-implemented. So we have like a conservative here who is putting back the gas tax while you have an NDP premier next door who's taking it away, which I understand, but it just looks bad on the surface.
yeah. Lob Canoe is interesting. So like when it comes to conscientious protection rights, I would not be surprised if he doesn't touch them, especially because that's something in the northern reserves in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Ontario as well, for sure, but especially in Manitoba, amongst the Indigenous, they're always fighting against high suicide rates, especially amongst the youth, and having, almost unlimited for any reason on-demand access to assisted suicide is not helpful amongst the Indigenous population. Of course, Wapkanu being the first Indigenous premier amongst the provinces, at least in Canada. So it's going to be interesting. He has a crazy person in his caucus who is in his cabinet, and Honey Fontaine, who
Mm-hmm.
keeps introducing very, very restrictive on free speech, that is, pro-abortion legislation to make bubble zones around hospitals and clinics and wherever abortions occur in Manitoba. That has always failed under a
Right.
progressive conservative government for the last few years. We'll see if he as premier and their caucus and their cabinet is something they want to implement, or will they be more level-headed about it and not really do it? So it'll be interesting to see.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year from LaRosse Media Inc. We are proud to announce casting for a brand new pro-family short film, coming soon from children's rights charity Them Before Us. But we need your help. Our film has already been censored by a casting service, and so we are taking matters straight to you, our listeners. Please pass this far and wide, and remember to reach us at tbufilm@gmail.com. That's TBU, short for Them Before Us, tbufilm@gmail.com. Our film opens as a young girl, Colette, walks into a marketing photo shoot which promotes artificial reproduction. Colette questions her father Alex and his human resources colleague Molly about her origins, as Colette gets a clearer sense of the forces at work that gave her life. Please note all of these roles are paid and non-union. For Colette, we are casting a female of any ethnicity between the ages of 8 and 11. Formal acting experience is a bonus but not required. Please note there will be a few long lines to memorize. For Molly, we are casting a female of any ethnicity around the ages of 30 to 50. For Colette's dad, Alex, we are casting a male of any ethnicity around the ages of 40 to 50. Please send us an introduction, headshots, and a resume or credit list to TBU, short for Them Before Us, tbufilm@gmail.com. But wait, there's more. The final role we are casting is that of the photographer, who is perpetually 5 minutes away from their lunch break. For the role of photographer, we are casting any age, any ethnicity, and any gender. This character gets the opportunity to ad-lib against Molly, the harried HR representative. Help us overcome the anti-family censorship regime. Spread this message far and wide. Casting is now open. Email us at tbufilm@gmail.com. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year from LaRosse Media Inc.
Sometimes premiers or leaders, conservative leaders, put specifically strong pro-lifers in their cabinet so that they have to kind of follow the party rules and they can't go rogue.
Silent. Yeah.
So I wonder if it's the same for the other side. You know what I
The other
mean? Like,
side,
do they?
yeah, the other side deals in the same thing that we deal with, right? It's a coalition, especially in Manitoba. A province of 1.5 million. You only have two parties, basically two political parties provincially that are competitive, and so they're kind of more those broad coalition type parties, and all different types of constituencies. By constituencies, I mean groups of people based on different ideologies make up those party coalitions, and so
Mhm.
they'll deal with the same thing as the progressive conservatives deal with. Um, and both sides, not so much for progressive conservatives in Manitoba, but I have been noticing this more on the federal conservative side. Both sides do engage in, I think, what can be called virtue signaling. It's just that the left, when the right virtue signals, the left calls it dog whistling. But that's
Mhm.
exactly what it is. It's virtue signaling.
Right, right. Yeah, so we'll keep an eye on that. And then New Brunswick, we just had I mean, it's the 21st, so on the 19th, 2 days ago, we had a nomination there. Remind me the riding.
Oh, Hampton. Keep talking. I'll look up the riding
Yeah, it's
now.
like three,
Yeah.
yeah. But a good friend and pro-life colleague of ours, Faitine Griseski, she won the nomination there. She's been in the news a lot because previously to running, she was the head of For My Canada, and she was very outspoken supporting Premier Higgs in his parental rights legislation, and the media went after her because of that. She faced a lot of like personal threats and familial threats and things, so it wasn't fun for her in the province, but regardless, she persevered and then she ran for the nomination and she won. And Premier Higgs posted all about it, lots of pictures, was very happy that she won, was very happy she's on side with his parental consent policies as well as fiscal policies and others. And she's going to be a great addition to his caucus. And I'm really looking forward to this election. I think it'll be really good. I think that Premier Higgs is an absolute badass. And I just love a lot of what he's doing. I know that, sometimes when you have a strong personality like that and stand up for issues, you probably just have a strong personality in general, and that can turn people away. And so I know that within caucus, maybe some people aren't as fond of him just on a personal level, but I think that's the case with any leader in any political party. You're always going to have people who kind of clash with your personality, especially when it comes to politics. But regardless, I think that he's going to have a good team of people who do support him in the long run, and I'm looking forward to this election. I think it'll be a good, in a lot of ways, and a signal to a lot of different provinces that what he's doing is the right move, both on social issues and other issues as well.
Like an actual signal, not a virtual signal, because he's
Yeah,
actually
I know. I was
following
going to
the
say virtue
policy.
signal. Yeah.
And our good friend Steve Outhouse is the campaign manager
Mhm.
for the upcoming provincial election in 2024 for the Progressive Conservative Party of New Brunswick. So,
And if anybody
you know,
knows what they're doing, it's Steve Outhouse.
yeah,
So
exactly. I mean, he saved the election for the United Conservative Party of Alberta
yeah.
this past year. So, yeah, if it weren't for him, that easily could have gone the other way.
Hmm.
It's crazy to think. Not that we're going to do a year in review, but it is crazy to think that that provincial election in Alberta came down to under 1,700 votes out of
Yeah.
millions of votes cast in 5 different ridings. So you're
Hmm.
talking less than 400 votes per riding in in Calgary.
Yeah,
And
we
that's the
just
first time ever the NDP got more votes in the city of Calgary, including all the suburbs, than the Conservative parties.
hmm Yeah, we just did our winter newsletter, and in that there is a year-end review. So if you want to check that out, it's um, make sure that you go on our social media sites. It's posted there. You can also go be added to our database and you get it emailed to you. But I was rereading our blog post from after that election just to put that in a little blurb into the newsletter. And I got scared all over again. It was not,
You should
I
be
like
though.
started to
You
have
should be as well.
anxiety. Yeah.
Like they should be as well. If you're not going to engage in the cultural wars, they're going to engage with you, whether you want to engage with them or not. And if you're just going to cede all that stuff to the left, then don't be surprised that over the decades and over time, the left wins in what used to be safe conservative ridings. And don't
Yeah.
complain and cry about it, especially
Yeah.
like not even like culture war says, if you're not going to cancel and fight against the carbon tax, like Scott Moe is doing in Saskatchewan, or Wob Canoe from the NDP is doing in Manitoba, then what are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really hear much about Danielle Smith living in Alberta. I think she's keeping a pretty low profile and only kind of engaging and resurfacing every so often when it comes to sort of oil and gas or economic issues. But it was really interesting because I was at the UCP AGM a few weeks ago, um, maybe a month ago now. And I mean, it was almost like nonsensical for anyone to be there because the policies that are passed there passed by like 99.999%.
Yeah,
Like there's literally like four people who vote against the policies. So
got good numbers in North Korea.
it's definitely comical. So the hard part is getting the policies to the floor, but once they're on the floor, they're 1,000% going to pass. But the majority of the ones that did pass and that did make it to the floor were all very, very like right, both on social and kind of and some COVID stuff too, like but a lot of freedom issues too. So, and you have Pierre and you have someone like Danielle win because they're the pro-freedom candidate. They're all about freedom, and then they become leaders and premiers, and they kind of abandon that. I think that the grassroots is starving for that, and the way that they can kind of get that across is through conventions and AGMs and things. But hopefully the leaders are listening, because this is the meat that they want, and people were way less enthusiastic about the economic policies, that's for sure. Like, of course that people care about them, especially in Alberta, but
It's
they
not
just,
either or, right? It's an
yeah,
and.
people just
Yeah.
get really amped up when it comes to social issues. And so, yeah, if you really want to, and so that's the thing, like, yes, you and I are going to agree on with Pierre on getting rid of the carbon tax and blah blah blah, like all the economic policies, housing, you know making housing prices more affordable and things like that. But what's really going to like invigorate, what's really going to motivate us and motivate our followers and our donors and our supporters is actually talking about social issues. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy and things where you're going to lose the election, but it has to be something, because that's when you see it every convention, every AGM, even conferences and things. I spoke at a True North event a few months ago, and when Eli and when Andrew Lawton and others were talking about, when we were talking about the social issues, that's when people would interrupt and clap. That's when they would stand up. That's what people care about. It really like invigorates them, because they don't get it. They're starving for it. And so the next leader and then look, the leader that is doing that is Premier Higgs, and they can't even get 26 letters signed against him in his own in his own party to start a leadership review. So I don't know what else you need to really start tackling these issues in a greater way, but that's what we're here for, and that's what we'll continue to push for. But it's just so obvious to me wherever I go that this is the way to go with these parties.
Well, I think also too, when we, because a lot of times people, especially like on our corner of these political parties, will say, the party, right? But what does that actually mean, right? Because like we were just discussing a little bit earlier, parties are broad coalitions, and they're made up of various ideological constituencies. And the whole idea is you're going to create this winning coalition to form government to actually implement the things you want to implement. This is the crazy thing about the upcoming federal election, and I think like in Ontario, BC, and Atlantic Canada, like if you look at some of the recent polls, whether it be Nanos, whether it be Abacus, or whether it be Leger, and Leger was very accurate last election in 2021. I think they were the highest rated by most of the polling aggregators. You don't see the Liberals leading, and you don't see the Liberals as high as they were, in the 2021 election. But you had like a 16 or an 18-point lead for the Conservatives for the past, basically since the beginning of July, when interest rates for the Bank of Canada went to 5%. You see that big lead go from 16 or 18 points down to 8 or 9 points, or maybe even 10. And yeah, the Conservatives are still leading by a healthy margin, but you go from politics, when you look at polling for politics, is all about the trend, right? It's the direction and the momentum, not necessarily exactly what the numbers are per se, or the exact numbers, but it's what is the direction for the past week, 2 weeks, whatever the case might be. A good case in point is in the last provincial election in Nova Scotia, which I do believe was also, it was in 2021. Everyone was pissed off because the polls were wrong, because the polls had the Liberals winning and the Progressive Conservatives losing. And yes, that is true, that the latest polls prior to election day, about a week before election day, did have the Liberals probably beating the Conservatives, at least in popular vote, if not in seat count. But the polls also were not wrong at the same time, because the Liberals had like a 30-point gap or something ridiculous like that at the beginning of the election campaign when the writs were issued. And then that gap was whittled down to like 5%, right? So polls are only a snapshot in time. And those polls that occurred about a week before the election campaign, it's not like people just stop there, right? And then it switches. And so that's a really big, scary thing for the federal Conservatives. If you've gone from a 16-point gap to a 10-point gap, it's not like that 10-point gap just freezes. It could plateau. I'm not saying it won't, and it could revert as well. But obviously, the direction, the momentum should be of concern. And so, when you're just talking about the bloody carbon tax all the time, and you have an ND premier that's reversing it anyway, and you have federal Liberals that are starting to ease it out for various provinces and regions and stuff like that, which, I have my own opinion of that, and I would be much closer to someone like Pierre on that issue than obviously Justin Trudeau. I think people are starting to kind of question, okay, we get rid of Trudeau, and then what? Right? And it's not just someone like me who's always asked that question. I'm not interested in beating Justin Trudeau just so we can elect a Conservative government that's going to keep all the things the same. They're going to keep all the social policies the same. They're going to appoint the same crappy lawyers to be justices on the Supreme Court of Canada and all the other courts. They're going to appoint the same crappy people to be ambassadors to represent Canada, but not our views and values from a Conservative point of view. They're not going to exorcise with a no the bureaucracy and all the crazy things that we're doing, whether it be here in Canada or abroad in the international aid file. That, I'm not interested in electing a Conservative government that the only thing they do is balance a Liberal budget. Right. I'm interested in, if we're going to get rid of Justin Trudeau, what are we going to do after that? And I think a lot of Conservatives, from party members I'm talking about in general, are so focused on getting rid of Justin Trudeau. I think there are a lot of people in places like Ontario, BC, and Atlantic Canada would like to get rid of Justin Trudeau for a variety of reasons. He's been there for almost 10 years. Maybe they don't like things that happened during COVID. Maybe the economic pinch that they're feeling with their mortgage interest rates going up, or the inability to purchase a home, or inflation when it comes to grocery prices and gas prices. Maybe they're putting the blame on him, and a lot of the blame does go on him. And they're ready to get rid of him for all those reasons. But then they're thinking, then what? And then what? And they're looking at someone like Pierre. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing, is Pierre isn't really answering the question of then what. So then what are you left with? Well, you're left with an impression that, frankly, Pierre doesn't really give off the hopey changey type of appeal. He doesn't give off of the appeal of someone like Meloni, for example, in Italy, when she won that election earlier last year. This past year, I believe, not last year, 2023. He kind of gives, I'm not going to say like a Trump vibe, but like I'm going to tear it all down, but what are you building? You know what I mean? So I think that's maybe what we're seeing right now. And when you have a libertarian as opposed to an actual conservative, that's where things can maybe not go so hot, right?
Yeah, it'll be definitely interesting. Speaking of Pierre, his wife recently made the news because she was in. Hide it, but... Yeah, it's always so funny to me when these conservatives go on in French media and say the most progressive things as if we're not going to notice just because it's in French, which is so typical Patrick Brown style politics. But she was in the French media saying that she grew up in Quebec and that she has discussed the issue of abortion with her family, her husband, and that they're pro-choice and that it's part of her values, which I'm wondering if there's a weird translation or if she's just saying stuff on both sides of her mouth, because I've heard it from multiple people that prior to the Poilievre leadership race, the previous one, she actually voted for Derek Sloan as number one because of his stances on social issues. So it's it's hard to know where she stands, which is really just a very odd thing to say. And even just to go so far as to say it's part of her values, when I think it's pretty common knowledge that it's not.
I think we have to take her words at face value most recently, right? And until she corrects the record, for me, that's what I'm going to take from it.
Yeah, it's just odd to switch so much. But anyway, that was it was so unnecessary and just the wrong thing to say because it peeves a lot of people off. So hopefully the backlash from that will prevent her from saying such things in the future. But it'll definitely be interesting to see what happens. in the next year or so when it comes to the Conservatives. That will happen with Trudeau and Pierre and the polls. We'll definitely keep an eye on the polls and keep you guys updated on the trends and go from there. But we're really going to be focused as an organization on these nominations because regardless of who the leader is and what they say, these nominations are really important. Getting these pro-life MPs elected is really important. We've been able to increase the number of pro-life MPs in the last 2 election cycles since we've been elected. So
since we've been formed.
Yeah.
Since we started
right. Too. Yeah, since we've been
2019, 2021.
Yeah. I like the COVID one. I always forget happened. It was so inconsequential in so many ways. But,
it was the first time since Confederation in 1867 that not one single seat in the province of Quebec changed party hands.
Yeah.
And they had the second highest number of seats.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of which, when I recently was in Quebec and I was recently in Vancouver, and man, some of these, and I was actually recently in Toronto. So it's in the big cities. And it just seems like a lot of these cities are just going to hell. There's so much homelessness and drug use, and especially in Vancouver, I didn't even know where to stay because I was really concerned about that. And yeah, I don't know what the heck's going on in all of these cities. It's crazy, but it's sad too. And I found it really amusing too I don't know why I started this story because I'm gonna butcher it, but help me out here. Some government of China officials visited New York. Do you remember this?
Keep going.
Okay. Anyway, so Newsom.
No, it was San Francisco.
Oh, San Francisco.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
And he just got rid of all the homeless people.
He just cleaned up the city. Yeah.
And then when they asked him, when the media called him out on it, he's like, when you have guests come over to your house, you want to make sure your house is as clean as it can be. He fully just admitted it. Oh, I thought that was amusing.
Because the communists are guests, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so totally lost my train of thought, but we'll definitely keep you guys updated on that stuff. Anyway, it's been 45 minutes. Do you have any funny Christmas stories that you want to end with, or anything that's happened in the past couple of days? I know you guys were sick, but we've had a few catastrophic incidents here that always make me laugh right close to Christmas. But
I don't know, the projectile vomit from my daughter after she downed my wife when she grew up, and she had the flu, and she wanted water and sugar to revitalize you, but also something to actually physically crunch on. Her mom would give her, my mother-in-law would give them popsicles. So she asked me to go pick up some popsicles because they were sick way before I got sick. So I did that, and then my daughter had 3 or 4 different types of popsicles, and we thought we were in the clear, and we were just kind of cuddling on the couch and watching some bad Hallmark Christmas movie, and then all of a sudden she kind of stands up, and I thought she was just hot, and just all over the couch and all over me, projectile.
Ew.
Orange and pink and purple.
Okay, we get it.
Popsicle just everywhere.
Oh man.
Yeah. Funny stories. I don't have any funny stories. I have a sad story, and that's that the Winnipeg Blue Bombers lost the break for the second year in a row on the very last play of the game.
Yeah.
I was
after a lead, after they were leading,
yeah, for most of the game, and so I left right away. I said I'm just gonna go home and put my kids to bed and cry out of them.
Where were you?
I was at my buddy Corey's. He had a bunch of people over, so he did beef side ribs. Another buddy of ours, he did pulled pork, and then I did venison chili.
Nice.
So none of us were hurting for eating, but anyway, yeah. But a mutual friend of ours who's a Argos fan, he said, Scott, so many fan bases, not just CFL, but any sports fan base would kill to have their team in the championship 4 years in a row and win half of them. The Buffalo Bills, like
Well,
they
that's
were.
specifically why my husband doesn't watch CFL because he thinks it's just boring. Like it's the same teams over and over and over again, and it's just like there's nothing
I love
interesting about
CFL.
it. Yeah.
I can't stand the NFL to no fun league. Like there's like five-ish teams that are fun to actually watch. But it's just like it's four down ball and it's still 10 yards in between down. So it's just run, 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 run. Whereas in the CFL, you're forced to throw and have big plays because
Mm.
you only have three downs. So he's just saying that because he is a Stamp fan and they haven't been in the Grey Cup for quite some time, and it's understandable.
Even if they were, I don't think he would care much. Like, yeah, he's just not super into it. Maybe a little bit more, but
Yeah,
weren't didn't we win with that long-haired guy? That hillbilly guy? Didn't we win recently or didn't we make it recently? I remember it was when I lived here.
Calgary or Toronto?
Calgary.
Calgary.
What's his name? He was like the white trash quarterback. What's his name?
That
Do you
had
know who I'm
long.
talking?
Bo Levi Mitchell.
Yeah.
Did he have long hair? I thought
Yeah.
he had like short hair. Maybe he
No.
did have long hair at one point. Yeah, I still think he has some time left in him. But anyway,
Yeah.
yeah. So no, that's not a happy story. But yeah, like uh,
It's
our
happy for whoever won. Who
yeah
was it?
Montreal fans, the Alouettes.
Montreal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but like he's not wrong. Like your team got in 4 years in a row, and even the CFL team that has or a league pardon me that has only 9 teams, it's still
Hmm.
really hard to win
Hmm.
constantly, consistently. So
Yeah.
on the other hand, on the hockey side, I think both you and I are happy. Aaron, maybe not so much, but
I mean, they're not doing badly. Like the Leafs aren't doing great either. Like they're doing okay, and they're a really good team. But sometimes they're a lot. Like the last two games I watched, weirdly enough, I can't remember who they're playing against, but they scored within like the last 6 seconds of the third period, so they made it to overtime. And one of them was recently against Columbus.
like
Columbus was winning 5-0.
they at one point like last week, despite them being number three in the division, they only had
Mhm.
five regular season or pardon me, regular time wins. Regular,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
So
they just fall behind the whole game. Then the last second, they're like, "Oh, we're really good. Let's score 5 goals in a row with including the last goal at the last 5 seconds," and then they make it to overtime, and then they lose like right away. It's
yeah,
just
yeah, like
so you're really excited, and then you're like, "Oh,
yeah, it's they're of the three Canadian teams that are doing really well right now between Winnipeg, Vancouver, and Toronto. Toronto's probably the one I'm most concerned about in the playoffs because that's just not a good recipe for success in the playoffs. It's not a very sustainable hockey, but nonetheless, like, hey, you're going into the Christmas break. You're number three in the division. Like, if you
yeah,
can clean some of that stuff up, like you still
yeah."
have time to put.
And I won't be pregnant in the playoffs. It was like the very first thing I thought of when I found out I was pregnant. So I'm very happy about that. And when I told my friend Nolan that I was pregnant, that's immediately what he said as well, because we always watch the playoff games together. So,
Hockey right now in their division. I can't remember. Are they in the playoffs right now?
who,
Are they
sorry?
above the playoff line? Calgary.
I have no idea, but I think they were doing terribly. It was like
I
embarrassing.
think
Same with
they did.
Edmonton.
It was
Same with
it was
Edmonton.
uh, what my neighbor back in Stony Creek. Um, he is an Ottawa fan. She's an Edmonton fan, which is weird because he's from Toronto, but he's an Ottawa fan. She's from Calgary, but she's an Edmonton fan.
Mhm.
Anyway, him and I were kind of joking with her that remember that big game they had between the
Yeah,
Flames and
The
the
Heritage
football
Classic.
stadium, yeah,
Yeah,
up in Edmonton.
yeah,
We're calling it the Panic Bowl
yeah.
because I think between the two of them at that point they had already played like 20 games all together, and they only had like two wins between the two teams.
Hmm.
And yeah, Edmonton went on a heater of 8 games, but they've lost the last three. So
Yeah. And then the last game I think it was 2 games ago that Toronto played, they played against Pittsburgh with Kyle
oh,
Dubas being
7 minutes.
back. I
Did you
just,
see the clip from Dubas in the up
yeah,
in the box?
I hate it. Like I don't, maybe people love it, but I find that super cringe. I hate it when scores are that big. I just find it like it's just, I don't find it fun to watch. I find it cringy. I feel
No, but did you
I'm
see
too,
what he mouthed? I mean, he takes our Lord's name in vain, so I don't love it.
yeah. Oh, I'm
He
sure
said,
he's swearing up a storm.
"Oh yeah,
Yeah.
no, no, no."
That's a terrible thing to go through. And the thing is, like, it's not like it was his decision or anything, but I probably feel worse for Spezza because he followed him. So
Oh yeah,
they
I
both look
forgot about that.
displeased.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
took him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like Crosby's like on pace for like close to 50 goals or something this year, and like there's a really good chance they're not going to make. They'll be close, but there's a really good chance that Pittsburgh's not going to make the playoffs.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, hockey's fun. Both teams are doing pretty well. Aaron and I are going we go every year to the Flames versus Leafs game. That's January 18th here, so that'll be fun. I'll be very uncomfortable probably, but it'll be fun nonetheless. Because actually, the last game that they played against, it was when Calgary was not doing well, but it was a close game and it was really fun to watch. So hopefully, it's the same this time. Yeah, so hockey's always a must around the Renner household, especially around Christmas and during vacations and stuff. So last night we went to Confederation Park, which I wanted to tell you the story because I was telling my kids the last time that your daddy and I went to Confederation Park, we were just dating and we had no children. Oh, well, except for Scott, because Scott was third wheeling it with us to Confederation Park. But
It was nice.
Yeah, they have
You guys even got me chocolate.
like because you were a good boy.
Yeah, I was behaved. Yeah.
And it's a really nice lights display. So we took the kids there. 5 minutes in, we're walking halfway. We've made it maybe halfway down. Abby slips and falls, bangs her face on the ice, blood everywhere, just gushing. Yeah, and just terrible. So then we had to leave immediately, and in order to get her into the bath, we told her she could have a marshmallow, which she ate a marshmallow in the bath, and now she's sick. But Aaron says, "Oh, we have to, make sure we see signs of a concussion." Which, when you're very, very pregnant, you have a million hormones going on, and your husband says that your daughter might have a concussion, you're not sleeping that night. Like your brain just goes haywire. So I'm glad that that's over and she's not concussed and totally fine.
Pretty good there. Yeah. She looked like most of her face was together there, if not entirely. And
and then we were talking like, oh man. When you have when we have three kids and maybe one's like, they're all, 5 or 4 or 2, whatever, they're all running in different directions. Like, I don't know, I'm gonna have to get like a wagon and strap them in or something because they're not running like that. It's hard to keep track of them already, let alone if there are more. So, but yeah, she called her Nana in the bathtub, and we're going to Medicine Hat for Christmas. So she said, "Nana, could we go to the lights display in Medicine Hat?" And Nana said, "Of course." So we will try again, and hopefully there's no bloodshed this time.
You just need me there, right? When we went, it was not a problem.
Yeah.
There was no puking, there was no blood, as far as I knew.
You need to train my kids how to do family outings correctly.
Well, wish us luck. We're going out tonight to go and look at lights. So I'm sure there'll be an issue at some.
Well, it's super warm here too. Like it's I'm starting to seriously believe in man-made global warming because it's been like 15 degrees, 12 degrees, 10 degrees. Like it is. We're gonna have a fully green Christmas. Like it's not even cold. Like you could be in your spring jacket sort of thing. So
El Nino here. All that warm water comes up from Australia about once every 10 years or so. And
I should know this. In grade 8 or grade 7, I actually did a big project on El Nino, and I specifically remember the homepage of my project. I put it like the wind was glitter. And there was so much glitter on the front page, and I got an A, but the teacher wrote never use glitter. Because I think it just like probably leaked everywhere. But good old El Nino. Yeah, so we will see you guys again in the new year. We will resume our regular podcasts. Pardon me? Yeah, get some guests on for sure. Yeah. Absolutely. Every other week, starting in January. And we look forward to that. We're going to start the year off with a bang and And we'll let you know when that first podcast happens. So make sure that you stay tuned. We hope that you have a very, very Merry Christmas and a Happy Holy New Year. And we look forward to talking with you in the future. Thanks for joining us.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year from LaRosse Media, Inc. We are proud to announce casting for a brand new pro-family short film, coming soon from children's rights charity Them Before Us. But we need your help. Our film has already been censored by a casting service, and so we are taking matters straight to you, our listeners. Please pass this far and wide, and remember to reach us at tbufilm@gmail.com. That's TBU, short for Them Before Us, tbufilm@gmail.com. Our film opens as a young girl, Colette, walks into a marketing photo shoot which promotes artificial reproduction. Colette questions her father Alex and his human resources colleague Molly about her origins as Colette gets a clearer sense of the forces at work that gave her life. Please note all of these roles are paid and non-union. For Colette, we are casting a female of any ethnicity between the ages of 8 and 11. Formal acting experience is a bonus but not required. Please note there will be a few long lines to memorize. For Molly, we are casting a female of any ethnicity around the ages of 30 to 50. For Colette's dad, Alex, we are casting a male of any ethnicity around the ages of 40 to 50. Please send us an introduction, headshots, and a resume or credit list to TBU, short for Them Before Us, tbufilm@gmail.com. But wait, there's more. The final role we are casting is that of the photographer, who is perpetually 5 minutes away from their lunch break. For the role of photographer, we are casting any age, any ethnicity, and any gender. This character gets the opportunity to ad-lib against Molly, the harried HR representative. Help us overcome the anti-family censorship regime. Spread this message far and wide. Casting is now open. Email us at tbufilm@gmail.com. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year from LaRosse Media, Inc.